This is Jenny with Power 3, and kind of rushed on today, so I'm going to jump in. And let me just get comfortable. So, as you can tell, this is a little bit informal, but today we are talking about the upcoming non compete law change. We have a couple of months until it becomes effective, but I wanted to make sure that business owners understand what this really means for them, how to navigate it, and find that balance between respecting the spirit of the law and honoring your employees and their life goals and maintaining your business. You know, it is always difficult for employers to lose valuable employees. Um, and especially when those people go and compete for business against them. But this is the reality, and we all know as a business owner that there was a day where you did that. And you had your reasons, and they have theirs. And a lot of the reason that the law has changed is about freeing up the market, opening the door to more competition in the markets. So, for instance, it's sort of that capitalist dream and that American dream of being, self-sufficient business owners and having the opportunity to do so. And many people, they get to a point in their career where they are ready to do that. The difficulty is, for the employer, they have business interests to protect. And the non-competes have been abused by some employers in the past, unfortunately, and that's just par for the course with businesses. But that abuse has been very restrictive. I'm going to start off with the piece of paper. If an employer is providing a non-compete, it is a piece of paper. It is written by a human being, hopefully a human being who understands the law. However, there's the law, there's the contract, and then there's case law. And case law can be interpreted differently depending on the judge you get and the lawyers you have and the way it's argued. And state by state has additional non-compete laws potentially that can also affect what actually comes of things. So a blanket non-compete agreement is ultimately only as good as the piece of paper it was written on that probably cost you a penny, maybe 5 pennies in today's economy. But as a business owner, you have to look at that piece of paper as just a piece of paper. It sets a precedent. It gives you legal avenues. But is it enforceable? Is it legitimate? Doesn't matter if you put it on paper, and it doesn't matter if they sign it. If it ever gets contested in court, case law could determine that it doesn't matter. A lot of people have 2-year non-competes. Most 2-year non-competes aren't enforceable. So it just depends on what's going on and what that finding in that court was. And so this law is trying to change that a little bit and make it just a little bit more clear cut that you can't prevent another person from going out and competing for business just by banning it. And the way it works for the employers is by that date, which I should have written it down, but it's in about 2 months, and I'll post some information about it as a follow-up. That by that deadline, and anything beyond that, all non-competes for your standard employees are invalid, and you are required to provide a notice to them that it is no longer valid and that there's no non-compete in place. For senior level executives, any pre-existing non-competes through the end of this time period are valid and can remain in effect. However, there can be no non-competes going forward from that date forward. but it's sort of like a grandfather thing for senior executives. And I think because what they discovered is there's a lot of complexities around non-competes with senior executives and the arrangements that they have. So from that date forward, your non-competes with senior executives will be non-existent. And you're going to have to structure any agreements that you have with them with that in mind. Okay? So with that being said, as an owner, let's just talk about the emotions of it all for a minute. Let's get off the paper. So as an owner, it can be threatening when somebody leaves and they're competing for business. And I see this a lot with business owners, wanting to protect those interests. If you, like me, have fought to build your business, it's hard to have competition. But I'm a firm believer that you just have to be better. And that's what a competitive market brings. That's capitalism. That's, why competition is so important. If you think Exxon is charging too much, you might go to Royal Farms, and as consumers, that is the spirit of America, to be able to do that. And by limiting that, you're kind of clinching the market. There's antitrust laws involved. So with that being said, as a business owner, you have two choices. You can be grumpy about it, or you can build your next best ally. That's the truth of it. Maybe your employee is that quintessential rock star and you want to, you're a little afraid of what they're going to do to take your business. Well, if you can't beat them, join them, right? And you might become their best mentor and they might become your best ally. They might exceed you at some point and bring you with them because you were so supportive. I really think that is, for me, the spirit of it. And, and sometimes, people launch and they fail and they still have a good relationship with you and maybe they come back. No harm, no foul. You still have a good relationship. And I think that that's really important. Where it can go wrong, and this is the part that I think any business owner would fear the most, is that here they are, they're on your payroll, they're working for you, and they're supporting your customers. And you've worked hard to earn that business, whether it be, contracts with the federal government or business to business, or individual consumers. You've worked hard to earn that business. Now, what happens if there's no non-compete in place and they want to go start a business? Can they just go and start plugging your existing contracts? I've seen it happen where they try to. If you're working on an existing contract with a prime and you go to the prime and say, hey, I'm about to start my business and I'd really like to start it on this contract. Would you set me up? Well, that's actively taking business away from the employer who worked so hard to get on that contract in the first place. And trust me, you're a government subcontractor, the pain is real on that. It's you fought hard to get there. So to have someone, hit you in the kneecaps on that would be tough, and you would lose not only the revenue on the employee, but potentially then they could start, taking roles and competing against you for those roles, and directly on the contract that they have the opportunity to build those relationships on your dime. So that is a tough one. And the best answer to that is to have business to business contracts and agreements that protect your business. And that's how you handle that. You can still have things like non-solicitation agreements. You can have, in a non-solicitation agreement, just to kind of summarize that, you're not supposed to be able to walk around the hallways and just approach people to do, to come join you somewhere else or something like that. So that's, usually the non-solicitation agreements are for a period of time. Now, the trick with a non-solicitation is if my buddy John and I are working together and he goes and, joins another company and I see that that company is doing really well and I'm interested and I go and apply at John's company, the non-solicitation agreement, that doesn't cover that. Now, John came to me and was like, come with me, come with me, come with me. Here's a job. I'll work out with the boss to get you an offer. That's a solicitation. So those are the kinds of things that, as of right now, are still legal. And, again, it comes down to it's a piece of paper and it's enforceable. But, when the term enforceable is you'd have to go to court. And how much is it worth to fight that? And at some point, employment is at will, still not a good battle. That being said, having that language in place so that John doesn't try to solicit me and steal me away from you after he leaves and goes to this other company, having that language in place can stem the flow a little bit. It can definitely open the door to like that discussion that, hey, you're not supposed to do this. Do people really read those? Do they really understand them? Will they actually comply with them? Will you be able to prove that they complied with them? And the answers to those are just much more vague, and it's situation by situation. Now, if you hear someone in the office actively saying, I'm leaving, come with me, that can really be a direct, issue if they've signed a non-solicitation agreement. The non-compete is intended to, banning it is intended to allow them to go take a job with your competitors, which I think is a normal thing because your competitors do the work they do. It's also allowing them to go and start up their own business in your industry. You can't prevent them from doing so. But your business-to-business contracts can prevent the two businesses from entertaining those things. But again, it always comes down to, the person behind the paper and the character they have and what they're going to do. Because I've seen situations where you're not supposed to do X, Y, or Z. You're not supposed to allow that person to come and sign a contract with you and take business from an existing subcontractor, for instance. But they do it anyways, and it just happens. So, and you're stuck. Do you burn bridges and get mad and file lawsuits, or do you take a punch to the gut and keep on chugging? And it really, I guess, depends on how big the loss is and what kind of guns you can bring to battle, so to speak, on documentation and proof that they even did it that way. So those are all things to consider. The other thing is, and this is sort of a weird in between that most employers wouldn't feel great about, but if you're a confident company and you're growing and you have someone who is a go-getter and you see them going places and you have that kind of company culture where you can talk about those things and they can come in and discuss it with you, maybe there's opportunities and you build it and partner on it together. And I've seen that a lot. And I think companies that can do that actually do better in the long run. In fact, there's a lot of subcontractors that were created through a relationship with their employer, and the employer supported them starting their own company and then almost kind of backed them up and became sort of a partnership or subcontractor to them to give them more power to gain steam, knowing that they're currying favor with the up-and-comers. So, it's like friendly competition in a way, but you just have to be aggressive and be better and build something together if you can. And I think that's the best way to look at it from a protection and legal standpoint. Trying to have airtight contracts with your primes and subs and whoever else to protect business to business is important. This non-compete ban does not cover business to business for corporations. It does cover people who provide services as a sole proprietor, and it covers any 1099 worker. So they use the term worker in the law, and they say there's a ban on non-competes from the employer to the worker. But the worker is defined as an employee, someone, a 1099, a sole proprietorship, things like that. So if they have an existing relationship with you in those ways, it could be temporary, intern, etc., volunteer, all those things. You cannot sign a non-compete with them. You cannot enforce that non-compete. You can't even make them think that there's a non-compete from that date forward, once the ban goes in place. But business to business, you can have non-competes, and that's where you're going to gain your greatest protections and ensure that there's some sort of potential in place. Going back to this whole piece of paper, but is it enforceable, and are you going to bother enforcing it? The cost of pursuing that could be more than the cost you'll gain from winning a lawsuit, if you even win. So the next best thing you can do is negotiate. If there really has been kind of a breach of contract, but to enforce it means you're making enemies with people, and you are spending tons of money on lawyers and going to court and all this stuff, and that's not the direction you want to go in. Open the conversation and say, I'm suffering a loss. Is there something that we can do? And maybe if it's someone who values the relationship with you, they'll say, okay, yeah, we're going to be doing business with them, but we will essentially give you this other business. We'll build up over here, even though you're losing this, to keep things whole. Or, okay, we'll do it, but let's give it 3 months time and give you time to recover somehow. Those are things that you can do. Or a payout, just an agreement of, you're going to be losing this much money. We'll give you a percentage, just to sort of like to sweeten the deal. And those kinds of negotiations can happen just as a mediation type of thing. And it doesn't have to be lawyers in court and, litigation types of, fun stuff. So those are all options that you have in your wheelhouse. The other thing that's important is you still want to have confidentiality agreements in place, non-disclosure agreements. You want to ensure that you have all your company's proprietary information is protected. So it's one thing that someone wants to go and compete with you, but if they're taking all your company data to go do it, that's a problem. So those are all things that are important. If somebody is building a tool on your dime, they should not be able to take the coding from that tool to go build it somewhere else. Things like that. So if you have contracts in place as part of your onboarding that protect, the development of software, the development of anything, policies, programs, anything that they build on your dime is owned by your company, that sets that precedent as well. Again, only as good as the piece of paper it's on. Enforceable, probably. But could they go and use that knowledge and build something similar with their knowledge? Of course. Now if you have a patent on it, another enforceable thing. And getting a patent can be really useful. It can take a long time, but it can be useful to help protect things. But even a patent is only as good as it is enforceable. So then you have to go and prove that they basically copied your thing and that it is protected by your patent. And that patent will, that'll be examined to determine. And it's kind of like, Vanilla Ice and his song, what is the song it was like? It was like Too Much Pressure. That's the Pressure song. The dun 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 dun, whatever. I'm not a musician. So anyhow, he was like, no, it's different because it has, this one is dun 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 dun, and this one is dun 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 dun, whatever it is. Very little difference, but enough of a difference that I think that, he was standing on that. But it's true, the beginning of those songs come on and I have to take a moment, like, is it this one or is it that one? I like both songs, so it's just funny, but they are very similar. And so that kind of thing is, is it enforceable if you have the patent in place, if you have proof that it's essentially stolen property, things like that, yes. You should have a case. Do you want to pursue it in court? That really depends on, if, you come to battle on that. And, and that's assuming you even discover that they're doing it. So that's just the bottom line. And, it happens all the time in little ways that people take something with them or, just whatever, can build on the knowledge of and things like that. As an employer, the only thing you can do is protect the things you've paid for, built, and, and then treat your employees really well and build good relationships with them, even when they're becoming your competition. So that is my advice. One of the things that I want to make sure is very clear is that everyone is required to notify their employees. For any employee that signed a non-compete, that it is no longer enforceable by that date. And for senior executives, you can, notify them that they are qualified as a senior executive and their non-compete is remaining enforceable. So that doesn't mean they won't approach you for a renegotiation, and you just have to be prepared for that. And determine what that looks like if there is some discussion of that. As far as all those other protections, Power 3 has several contract managers who develop language like that. And we have our own templates that we utilize and can be stretched and sort of, built in to fit your specific needs or specific language. And that includes for your non-disclosure agreements, your non-solicitation agreements, your confidentiality agreements, and all those things. And, as far as the patent goes, that's something you can pursue if you know that it's not been done before. And there are a lot of software patents out there. I've actually written one myself, I'm proud of. Along with others, I just helped a lot, but I did not do the technical stuff. But it was fun to do, and they were awarded the patent, so it was very exciting to accomplish that. But again, it comes down to enforceability, and in the meantime, that tool can completely change the whole landscape. It can become a whole different thing. So you have to make sure you develop your patent in a way that is sort of product agnostic, if you will, when it comes to software development, things like that. It's the concept that you need to make sure to define in the workflow and things like that. But as far as this non-compete thing, it is not as scary as it seems. You can't prevent them from going out and working with your competitors, etc. But you can create your business-to-business contracts to have that layer in that prevents your business teaming partner from taking them on because they worked on that contract with your company and you have a relationship with them. Now, if you're on 10 contracts and they go to one of your other contracts, they may not have the same thing because they didn't work on that contract. And that's all how those things are defined. At some point, in the industry we serve, it's such a small pond, there's a lot of this going on. And there's a lot of kind of breaches, really, of contract that kind of are allowed to slide because it is such a small pond and there is so much, interaction and cross-stepping. And the best that you can do is understand that it is a small world and you are building relationships and that your business will thrive in alignment with other businesses, including the primes that might be doing the thing where they're taking somebody. and you just have to work with them and appeal to them and try to negotiate something that, keeps you as whole as possible. And I find that for every blow that I take in business, I gain. And it's like Seinfeld's Even Stevens. Although eventually I feel like the kinder I am, the more supportive I am of things like that, that the world gifts me with things and positivity. So I have to remind myself when I'm starting to clench down on something that, let it go, let it release it, and the world will reward me with better outcomes. And it really does happen for me. I don't know if other people have that happen, but I think it's an energy and a focus thing. You could spend a lot of time being litigious. You could fight every breach of contract. You could check on everyone to make sure they're not doing this, that, or the other. And that's what your focus is. You're clamping down on something that it's like holding back the tide. If someone's determined to do something, they're going to find a way. Or you can focus on yourself and grow yourself and your company and see those people as assets, whether they're your employee or your competitor. And now you've got a good relationship with them. And so those are all things to really think about with this. If you would like help with your contracts, please contact me, Jenny at power3.com, business@power3.com, or you can put a little message here and in LinkedIn, or I'm also on YouTube with the Boss Moves channel. So we'd love to help you, but I hope that you're comfortable with these changes and find your way through them and find that balance of protecting your business and supporting your employees. Good luck out there. Bye.